In this video, I'll be telling you 3 things that you need to be doing in order to retire well. We don't think much about retirement, but all of us will one day need to retire. And statistics in Kenya show that most of us will retire and have to live on only 40% of what we're earning now. That means when most Kenyans retire, their standard of living goes down by 60%. No one wants this to happen to them, and that's why in this video series, I'll be taking you through a step-by-step guide on what exactly you need to be doing right now in order to retire well in the future. These are the 3 steps that we'll go through in this video series. 1, how much do you need to retire? 2, how do you get to this amount? And 3, how do you invest this money in the best way possible in order to ensure that you retire well? This is a very practical guide. You'll be doing this along with me. So get out a notebook and a pen, and please like, share, and subscribe if you found this video helpful. Step 1, how much money do you need to retire? In order to get to this amount, which is your goal and a very, very key step, you need to ask yourself 3 questions. How many years to retirement? How long you plan to enjoy your retirement, and therefore the income necessary for that. When you look at how many years to retirement, age is a big factor. Generally in Kenya, people retire when they're 60 years old. And this means that, say you're 30, that means you have 30 years left to retirement. You can calculate that for yourself. Let's assume that we're going to go with 30 years to retirement. So now we have our first answer. You have 30 years to retirement. As I said before, this is different for everybody. Estimate for yourself when you plan to retire. Second is the years you plan to enjoy your retirement. So let's assume that you've retired at 60 and you plan to enjoy your retirement for 30 years. Now we have our second answer, which is quite simple, 30 years after retirement. Now you know that for 30 years after you retire, you will need an income, and yet you will not be earning. So what you'll actually be surviving on is the income that you are receiving, or whatever you built up during the time that you are employed. As a starting point, begin with how much money you need right now per month to cover your expenses. Let's suppose you use 50,000 shillings per month to cover all your expenses. So that's your beginning point in this question. Remember, I told you to have your notebooks out because these numbers will vary for everybody. But for the sake of this example, we're assuming that this 50,000 shillings is what you know you need every month right now in order to cover your expenses comfortably. Now we're going to do some additions and some subtractions. Let's start with the subtractions. At this point, I need you to minus every single thing from your budget that you hope or you expect that you won't be covering when you retire. This includes things like fees, saving, or anything else that you know that will probably not fall into your budget during this period. And then, after you've minused this amount, let's suppose that you've minused 20,000 shillings. Then I need you to add things that you expect will likely appear more when you've retired. For example, mortgage payments, additional health expenses, especially this, and other things like traveling that you hope to do when you've retired. So let's add per month about 40,000 shillings, and our final amount is about 70,000 shillings. So 70,000 shillings is what you expect to require per month during the 30 years that you've retired. So far, according to our calculations, this 70,000 shillings is what you'll need per month during your retirement years in order to cover your expenses comfortably. However, we've not taken into account inflation, and 2, we've not taken into account any miscellaneous emergencies that may occur during your retirement. How to deal with these assumptions to get a better estimate is to add an amount that will cover inflation, that will cover any miscellaneous expenses that may occur, and to cover an increased cost of living that you hope to have achieved by then. So I'm just going to add about 50,000 shillings to get to 120,000 as my final amount. People tend to come up with any amount that they think they'll need when they retire, but using this calculation, this will at least give you the minimum amount that you need based on your situation right now that you'll need when you retire. And the minimum amount is based on your current needs right now, your current income or whatever you need to cover your expenses comfortably, minus any obsolete expenses, fees, savings, things that you don't expect to pay when you retire, adding any additional expenses that you expect will come up when you've retired, whether that's more money towards health or anything else. And then, of course, further additions to cover for inflation and any additional ones that you hope. For example, you hope to travel when you're older. So this comes down to 120,000, at least a minimum estimate of what you'll need to cover your expenses comfortably during the 30 years that you'll have retired. So next is step 2, and a very important step. How do I achieve this amount by the time I retire? At this point, you have your goal, 120,000 per month that you'll be using to cover your expenses for the 30 years that you hope to have retired. That will change depending on the calculations that each person had for themselves. And now we'll move to step 2. How do you get to this amount? How do you build this amount? I'll give you 4 things that you should be doing right now. 1 is using the 50, 30, 20% rule. This is a rule of thumb for all of you earning an income, whether from business or from employment. 50% on your needs, 30% on your wants, 20% should be going to your savings. So 50% on your needs, these are things like fuel, electricity, water, food. 30% on your wants, these are things like travel, gadgets, or anything else that you enjoy, and 20% should at least be going to your savings. If you're able to do more on the 20%, even better. But a rule of thumb is that you should work towards these percentages. If you struggle to save, a tip that I have for you is to use automated savings. For example, you can go to your bank and ask for a standing order. As soon as the income comes in, that 20% goes out to a savings account or an investment asset. Second thing you need to do is focus on paying off your debt, especially high interest debt. This is, for example, for mobile loan services which charge up to 15% interest on your debt. If you can do this even before saving, depending on how high the interest is, the better. So work towards paying off this debt as quickly as possible. The thing with debt is that at some point the interest itself starts earning interest. So the interest on your loan starts earning its own interest, and this amount tends to swell, especially for high interest debt. So if you can pay off your debt as quickly as possible, focus all your energy towards this. Third thing that you need to do is make more income. Advice that I would give is to think of the things that you enjoy or the hobbies that you have right now, whether it's cooking, maybe you just love shopping, or you're that person who loves gadgets. Think of how you can monetize a hobby. The benefit of monetizing a hobby is that you already enjoy spending time on this thing. So it won't tire you or drain you on top of the work that you currently do. So sit down, list down your hobbies and think, how can I monetize this hobby? There are so many avenues in this day and age compared to before, which we can use to make money. For cooking, you can advertise your services on Instagram or among your friends on WhatsApp and cook for small birthday parties and other things like that. If you're a gadget guy, you can start a YouTube channel talking about gadgets and their specs and giving advice to people. There are so many things that you could do. Think of how to monetize. The fourth and last tip is to avoid lifestyle inflation. Lifestyle inflation means increasing your expenses to match any additional income you get. This happens to the best of us, and actually statistics show that it takes 6 months for someone to slowly increase their expenses to match any additional income. Be intentional with keeping your expenses low no matter how much additional income you make, and channeling as much as you can to saving towards your future. So far in this video, you've learned how much money you need to retire and tips on how to build your wealth. In the next video, we'll be learning how to invest this money in the best way possible in order to achieve your retirement goals. So stick around for that. Stay up to date on our social media channels. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, and never miss a moment. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. See you in part 2 of the video.